Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Justin the Food Entrepreneur Show. I'm Justin Bizzarro. I'm your host. That's Bizzarro. For anyone who's out there, you can find us on Instagram and Facebook. You can find me personally on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. And you can find Gorilla Brave on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram, guys. So that being said, I'm going to jump right into it. From Denver, Colorado, I have David Wright of Wright Cream. How are you doing today, David?
Thank you for having me on the show.
Yeah, you're very welcome. David, let's talk about your story a little bit because in pre-recording, we talked a little bit about it's a non-traditional journey, sort of something you decided to get into. But before that, let's talk about background, history, who you are. Did you play sports? All those kind of things so the audience can get to know you, the human that led up to Wright Cream.
Yeah, totally. I grew up in northern LA, Ventura County, lived there until I was about 10, lived in Jacksonville for a couple of years, and then I've been in Jacksonville, Florida, and then I've been in Denver for basically the last 20 years. So I like to tell people that, I was born in LA, but I committed all my crimes in Colorado. So this is where I grew up, and, I've always had a love for the food industry. I really enjoyed bringing food to class in middle school and high school and just kind of sharing what I was making at home with classmates and different things like that. So that's kind of where it all started for me with being in food. I played hockey growing up and I played golf growing up. I wasn't really on any teams at the school I went to. It's the biggest public high school in Colorado. It's pretty competitive, but started taking some cooking classes in high school and stuff like that. And that was kind of my creative outlet and what I really, really enjoyed to do. But before starting Wright Cream and actually being in the industry professionally, after going to Colorado State, kind of bounced around between a lot of different sales jobs, mostly online software sales and things like that for probably 6 or 7 years before 2020 came around. And I was working for this company that actually ended up firing everybody about 2 weeks before lockdown. So this was like February 2020. Yeah.
I love humanity.
Yeah, it was great timing. I mean, they were they were kind of one of those arbitrage home sale companies. Basically, you own a home, you want to buy a new one, but you have to sell your old one to buy the new one. So we buy the new one for you, and then you move into it and buy it back from us when the old home sold. So it was a unique program. It worked out well for a lot of people, but they kind of saw the writing on the wall because home sales were taking a nosedive during that time. So they ended up firing the whole sales staff. And then lo and behold, a couple of weeks later, lockdown. Not too long after lockdown, though, I was able to secure, another online sales job, but working from home, a lot of companies had no idea what they were doing, letting people work from home. So I ended up having just a tremendous amount of free time throughout the day, even though I was, working for this company full time and doing what I needed to do. But started making ice cream basically in, I think it was like May of 2020 at that time. And then pretty much right after I started making ice cream, I was selling it at the parking lot or out of the trunk of my car in different grocery store parking lots, people buying it on Instagram, coming to pick it up, that kind of deal. A couple months into it, local magazine picked it up and it got really popular during that time. And it basically became a full-time thing for me within a couple months of starting. So
let's just talk. Let's talk a little bit about. We talked a little bit about you went from California, maybe Florida, ultimately ended up in Colorado. If I'm guessing, maybe largest, very competitive high school. I don't know what it be, but it might be Cherry Creek High School. But
good guess.
And so that being said, let's talk about that because I think now that school has like over 6,000 students or something. It's massive, but you're growing up in Colorado. You're trying to find your way. Why software sales? Was software something, computer sales, something that you enjoyed doing before?
I enjoyed, talking with people and conversing with people and kind of understanding what makes people tick and think the way that they do. So sales was kind of like, a way of me to do that. And, the money was good in that industry, right? I wasn't interested in doing a lot of desk jobs or a lot of, I'm not a super technologically savvy guy. I don't code or anything like that. And that's what a lot of like the bigger paying jobs were, I guess, coming out of college at that time, right? Because I graduated in 2014. So, coding was huge. And now with AI, that's obviously fallen off. But
Yeah. Talk about a career that ended quickly.
yeah, right. So I guess in hindsight, made a pretty decent decision there. But it was just a good opportunity for a young person out of college to kind of have an uncapped salary if they were good at their job. So that's kind of how I fell into those types of roles. And, just corporate world, once you end up doing something and you have some experience on your resume, it just kind of snowballs from there and you're able to get better jobs at other companies with higher paying bases or, bigger commission horizons and different things like that. Right. So that's just kind of how I was in that industry. And I really did enjoy it. And being a restaurant owner, you're not done selling, right? Every day I'm posting stuff on social media and coming up with new reasons to get people to show up to the store multiple times a week. So, still kind of doing that, but in a way that actually is satisfying to me instead of, selling a product that maybe you wouldn't use yourself or don't have any use for yourself because you don't work in government or run a construction business or, whatever type of software I was selling at the time. So.
I mean, the real thing here in sales, I think a lot of sales individuals have that natural entrepreneur ability. There's an ability there, which is the building of relationships, good salesmanship or saleswomanship or saleshumanship, however we want to look at it. But the real thing is, what I'm saying is there's an ability or a magnet of, or being an attraction to, of the human side of business, because on the human side of business is generally the sales side of business. We could argue it's HR, but more so it's on building relationships through our salespeople than anything else, and learning how to do that as individuals. So let's talk about this a little bit. You make the ice cream. Okay, I'm going to attach all this together. Let's talk about that. I'm going to leave the salesmanship anchor aside for a second, and let's talk about experimenting with ice cream, starting to do this. Where does that come from? Have you done this before? Because obviously an obsession in a good way can turn into something that's entrepreneurial. So there's something there, because who goes slinging ice cream in parking lots, right?
Yeah, not a lot of people. So,
right.
I mean, I guess where it all kind of started.
The podcast before you, the guy said, by nature, entrepreneurs are crazy. We are just crazy. We can't function within the rules that everyone expects us to. And we have some sort of universal understanding of the rules, and we just play by those. And I'm like, I kind of agree with this, but no, go ahead.
He's not wrong. I mean, it also, for me, cooking kind of became a thing in like middle school, early high school years, really kind of found you can say obsession with it then for sure. Really what it came down to was just, watching like Food Network at that time. There were so many great shows, and I really liked Good Eats and Alton Brown and the educational slant. And this is the reason why they do this the way that they do it and everything like that behind it, the food history aspects of it and stuff. And I started to realize, and Anthony Bourdain too, during that time, with all the shows that he had going on and everything.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah. Just the way that, how can you not fall in love with it, with the way that people talk with, especially the way that, Bourdain would talk about stuff, the romantic nature of it, the poetic nature of it and everything like that. And so some of the things that he would say, like, you'll never learn more you'll never learn more about someone than by sharing a meal with them. Or, I can't remember the old book, but Jose Andres talks about it too. It's like, tell me what you eat and I'll tell you who you are, so, being interested in human nature and being interested in just like why people make the decisions that they make and stuff like that. It seemed really natural to kind of start at the source with, why people eat what they eat and what do they eat and why are they eating that? What's the reason for that? Is there, a cultural aspect to it, historical aspect to it, all that kind of stuff was just incredibly interesting to me. And, I would make food for classmates in high school and bring it, or have friends over, make food late night when we're up and different things like that. And the feedback was always, it's always nice when you make something and somebody really likes it. And I think food is the easiest translation of that, because art is subjective most of the time, right? Art on a canvas, art on a wall, art on the floor, whatever version of it is being made, right? But food it's very black and white for most people, right? You either love it or you don't. It's either very tasty to you or it's something that you probably wouldn't eat again, right? So to get that sort of visceral reaction out of people when I was making food, that it was positive, and seeing people get excited about something maybe they hadn't tried before or didn't think about, or a flavor that they hadn't experienced, is kind of where that all started for me in terms of just like the love for being in food and wanting to feed people. But ice cream specifically was always interesting to me because, I get bored pretty quickly. I don't like making this, I don't like doing the same thing over and over and over again. And I think that that's why cooking really resonates with me, because yeah, we're cooking, we're making food, but you don't ever have to make things the same way that you've ever made them in the past. You don't have to make the same types of dishes that you've made in the past. You can constantly push that envelope and expand your repertoire and do really whatever comes to mind. And ice cream is kind of the epitome of that. You can make whatever ice cream flavor that you want, as long as you have, an end goal for what the final product's going to be in mind. So, everybody loves vanilla, chocolate, and Oreo and ube. We make all those flavors and everything like that. But for this anniversary dinner that I did last night, made a potato chip ice cream. That's not something that you see very often. But the thing about ice cream is that it's just a vehicle for carrying flavor, right? So as long as you're putting together the right flavors into the plate, into the dish, into the pint, into the cup, then the result is always going to be the same, an awesome dessert experience. So that's kind of why ice cream. It really can just be anything. And for me, it's really important to be creating and doing new flavors and doing new things and showing people new ways of maybe experiencing or tasting things that they already love. So that's kind of where ice cream comes into play for me. And
when you were doing it initially, let's talk about the ingenuity here, because I think it's important for the audience to understand where you are 5 years later, but where it started. You're making it in your home. You're building a business. I believe, I don't remember if we said it on here or pre-recording, it was discovered by 5280. There's all of these things going on, but it took believing in yourself enough to get it to places, and then you're transporting it, right? So you have all these things you're having to do beyond just the ice cream.
Yeah, I mean, and that's evolved over the last 5 years. So, yeah. June 9th, 2020 was the first day that I put a menu out on the Instagram account for selling ice cream. So that's kind of the date that I mark as the inception or the anniversary of ice cream. And between June 9th, 2020 and June 9th, 2025, these last 5 years, my role has changed dramatically. And what I do as a business owner and what I, do as an ice cream maker and everything like that is, completely different than it was 5 years ago. There were plenty of moments between that June 9th, 2020 timeline and today that I've been close to wanting to give it all up, or, having trials and tribulations, getting this whole thing going. I mean, it wasn't an instant success, right? I started selling it mostly to friends and family and the people that knew about it on Instagram. But those first 2 or 3 months, you're selling, 30 or 40 pints in a week. Then maybe the next week you sell 15 because you really don't have a big customer base. And then maybe the week after that, you go back to 30 or 40 or 50 or 60 and you start selling more. And then the week after, again, it's lower again. You kind of have to be able to navigate those early experiences and just like how it feels to get a business started. Because not everything's going to be an instant success. Not everything's going to just resonate with people right away. It took about 2.5 or 3 months before that article got written. But in those 2.5 or 3 months, I feel like there's a lot of times that people would have been like, I'm not going to make ice cream next week. You know what I mean? Or, it's not going to be worth it for me to do it again next week. But you really just have to kind of, if you're believing in what you're doing and people are giving you the right feedback, all it is a matter of time until it gets in the hands of the right folks or gets in front of the right folks. And then, they want to tell other people about it. They want to share your story. It gets put in print. It gets put in press. And I mean, a little bit of good press can go an incredibly long way, especially during that time when people are kind of looking for something new and exciting and interesting to kind of attach to their lives, and something to look forward to on Monday mornings when a new menu dropped and you could buy ice cream and pick it up that weekend and, have something to look forward to, frankly, during a time where a lot of people didn't have a lot to look forward to. So that was a big boon to getting me really interested in wanting to do this long term. Right. So, between there and now, like I said, there's probably been more times than I can count on two hands that I was close to, not wanting to do this anymore. Going from, making six figures a year in your sales jobs to running a business that, where we're selling $12 pints of ice cream. It's it can be taxing. It can be jarring. It can be not what you thought if you're going to go to it full time, and maybe it's not as successful and, your bank account's being drained, but you have to believe in what you're doing and you have to kind of see the end goal. There was plenty of times that I skipped paychecks during the winter because, you don't sell as much ice cream during the winter over these last couple of years. But now that the business has kind of fully evolved into a full brick and mortar and, full staff, and we're open 5 days a week, and we do more than just ice cream now. We've got burgers and other things. It's kind of evolved into something that I can look back on it and say, I'm glad and just super satisfied that I was able to make it through those tough times, and my team was there by me, and now I have the right people around me and everything like that. I mean, that's kind of the thing that I would say to anybody that's getting their business started is you see people with lots of followers on Instagram. You see people with, a line out the door and everything like that. Well, that didn't just show up because you started making food. That happened because, you were able to push through all the other bullshit that happens along the way that gets you to where you can be in a comfortable place to do the things that you want to do and actually, grow a business. So it's been an interesting experience. It's been something that I wouldn't really trade for anything, but that's just what I would say to anybody out there that's looking to start a business is know that success, no matter how quickly or how long it takes to come, it's coming, and you have, if you believe in it and you know the vision and you know what you want, other people are going to respond to that and they're going to support you, and it's going to work out for you.
I agree with you 100%. Let's talk about making the decision to go beyond just making ice cream and selling it at grocery stores. What was the decision that I can do more with this? I want to do more with this. This is a full-time thing. I can make more of this. Let's talk about that transition, what it was like, because you weren't a restaurateur before, so you're learning how to build, how to design, how to do all that stuff. I don't imagine you're cooking anything, but I don't know for sure. But so let's talk about all of that.
What do you mean cooking?
I mean, you're making ice cream, but are you also serving hot dogs and hamburgers and things like that? I just asked that because when building, I'm trying to frame up the question for the audience was you need a hood if you're cooking, and that's a whole other level. So I was just trying to tee you up. Anyway.
Right. So nowadays, yes, we are, but let's go back to 2020, right? At the end of 2020, we, been doing this full, quote unquote, full time for about 3 or 4 months now. Was approached by a local restaurant / boutique hotel that, wasn't occupied at the time because it's still height of COVID and lockdown and everything like that. So was able to kind of share their kitchen with them and start actually selling the ice cream out of a legit brick and mortar business. Right. So that's kind of where the first step to us being where we're at today began. Was that transition into the Ramble Hotel, which is in North downtown Denver. We were there for only 4 or 5 months, but it was a nice stepping stone to kind of realizing and understanding what it would mean to have my own space for this kind of stuff and what it would take. And frankly, we still don't have everything that I would like to have, in my building to do this on the scale that I'd like to do this at. We were only 800 square feet in my current brick and mortar. But, kind of was able to move from the Ramble to our first quote unquote actual brick and mortar location, which wasn't too far from there in Rhino. We were there for a year. That was a whole learning experience in and of itself, just learning how to navigate a lease and how a landlord and deal with those things that landlords like to do, like telling you that they're going to let you extend the lease and then telling you 2 months before the lease is supposed to end that they signed the lease with somebody else and you got to find a new location. So, I kind of shared space with different people for like the first, I guess, 2.5 years of having my own space, quote unquote. It was still shared space, but I wasn't doing it out of my house or anything like that anymore. And finally, in the end of 2022, beginning of 2023, we were approached by another ice cream shop that wasn't doing so well. And they said, hey, we'd like for you to take over our spot. We think you guys would do really good business here. We're not ice cream people. We have another business that we focus more of our efforts on. And we'd kind of like to just rent this building out to you guys. And we took over that lease in January of 2023. And that's where we've been since. And it's really, really grown. And that's where we've been able to kind of figure out exactly what Right Cream is as a long-term restaurant company and everything like that. So over the last couple of years, we've added a hot food program. We have a hood, the grease shop and everything like that. We started doing the burgers a couple of years ago. But I mean, the last couple of years was a lot of treading water, a lot of kind of figuring out what it means to have a payroll and have a restaurant that's open 5 days a week and having to pay for stuff when it breaks, and having to pay for utilities and not share them with other people and different stuff like that. Right. So the last couple of years have been mostly trial and error of what it means to run a brick and mortar restaurant. Not until really this year, have we hit our stride to where I really think that this can grow in a pretty quick and exponential way. We started doing smash burgers every day of the week earlier this year. And that's been a big boon to the business. And kind of what I've always looked at it from the standpoint of is like, ice cream is for a lot of people, not for everyone. Maybe this doesn't resonate with certain people, but for a lot of people, ice cream isn't a multiple day a week type of venture or something that you go to multiple days a week, right? For most people, it's a once, maybe twice a week experience, maybe once a month or once every other week type of experience. So I always looked at it from the standpoint of, how do I get my customers to show up 2, 3, 4 times a week to the same address with the same ice cream? But why would they show up again, right? So the reason for that is now the hot food that we're doing, the burgers, the breakfast sandwiches that we do on the weekend, the fish sandwich that we do on Friday, the fried chicken specials that we do, the chili dog specials that we do, the different pastries and cakes and pies and different stuff like that I'm able to make because I have the right people around me that are actually focused on making the ice cream and the burgers so that I don't have to do that all day, and having the right people around you. I can't say how important it is to have the right team around you and to learn to delegate and to be comfortable with it. You have to, in order to trust someone, you have to first trust someone, right? You can't, yeah, you know what I mean? So that's I feel like going to be a really, really hard thing for a lot of people that make food. And especially if they're like me, I still believe this, and maybe this will come off terribly, but I don't think anybody can do what I do better than the way I do it, right? Until you have to trust someone to be able to learn how to do it, right? That's kind of like that first hurdle in becoming a business owner. And that's what's really allowed us to grow over these last couple of years. Yeah, the burgers are really important. Yeah, the ice cream's really important and everything like that. That's what brings the dollars through the door. But if you don't have the right people that are executing the items that you're trying to push out on your side, it's never going to work. It's never going to matter, right? So that's kind of where we're at nowadays. I mean, having the burgers, having all that other stuff is a product of me delegating and being able to trust other people and having the right people on my side. So I'm very thankful that we have a great team and people that can execute the vision. And it's only looking up from here. So I feel like that was probably one of the biggest decisions that was made was just handing over the reins of that kind of stuff to the right people. So
as you were moving things along, did you know that you were going to eventually get into what I'll call hot food?
I've always wanted to be in, like, yeah, I always kind of envisioned it like that. I didn't necessarily, when I first started making ice cream, 5 years ago, that's not what was on my mind, right? But as soon I knew that we make all the mix-ins that go into the ice cream, right? So any toppings or any of the cakes, the caramels, the different stuff like that, we make that. So I always knew we were going to have a kitchen around us, right, Justin? So for me, like I said earlier, it's like, how do I maximize the space that I have? How do I get the most out of what I'm able to do? How do I get people to show up multiple times a week? And that's the way to do it, is to serve specials, is to serve food, is to serve a one day only, one weekend only type of thing. And now all of a sudden you're showing up there multiple times a week, right? So
Yeah.
I always wanted to be in food. So kind of like ice cream was my foot in the door, so to speak, for people to trust me for what I make. And now when we make something and we're like, hey, this is a special this week, or a new burger or a new chicken or whatever it is, people want to come try it because they already have a great experience trying the new stuff that we put out, right? So it just kind of snowballs from that aspect. You kind of show them what you're capable of, and they give you that initial trust to try it. And from that point forward, they're just willing to show up and try anything else. So,
Well, and
I mean,
I think there's a whole, oh, go ahead.
yeah, sorry. I mean,
No,
like,
go ahead.
just got kind of the culmination of that, honestly, is last night we had a 5th anniversary dinner at Right Cream. I literally have 4 tables with 4 little bench seats out front, 16 seats or whatever. They're not even like real tables. They're kind of like the tables that you'd find out front of like a McDonald's, like an In-N-Out or something like that. Just those circle tables with like the little circle chairs attached to them or anything. Yeah. We did a plated 8-course dinner, for 16 people that wanted to buy a ticket and wanted to try literally food that I've never put out in my entire life. Right. Just higher end, more fine dining type of concept. Shrimp French toast and skinny Philly sandwich, between 2 Pizzelle cookies, and, doing potato chip ice cream. And I did it in collaboration with a couple of friends, ceviche from an ice cream shop, right? Like that's kind of always been what I've always gone towards, is just like, let's kind of twist what people's perception of what's capable out of certain places, because places get labeled as this. It's like, oh, that's a coffee shop. That's an ice cream shop. That place serves Indian food. That place has pizza, But for me, it's just kind of about like what food is good. That place has good food, and anything that they do is good. You should go try it. That's kind of what I'm going for. So.
Yeah, I'm going to emphasize this. I'm going to anchor it, and then I'm going to ask you a question, but I want to anchor this for the audience a little bit, because I get these questions a lot, even in coaching and consulting. But no matter what you're doing, even if you're doing something different, it has to be extremely unique. There's a lot. There's a lot of competition out there for views. I'm not talking about competition to wish you were dead. That generally isn't how it works in the food game. But the competition for eyes, everyone's competing for eyes, mouths, taste buds, whatever you want to call it. And so there has to be uniqueness, and there has to be authenticity and vulnerability in the humans behind the business, or human, depending on the structure, ownership, entrepreneurship. And so the thing here that I want to show everyone is, it's not just ice cream, because what I did is we stacked a conversation here. Right Cream is a unique brand. It's a unique company. It has unique options because the entrepreneur behind it is living holistically in his life through his business. Okay. He's being true to himself in what he's doing. David here, as we're talking to him, not to talk about him in the third party, but the thing for everyone to understand, that if you're going to do a business and you're going to go forward, it better be really good, and it better be really unique and continually be developed. Okay. Because we can't just sit on ice cream on ice cream on ice cream. In this case, we talked about the first layer. Okay. We're going to bake, cook, cut, fresh, whatever ingredients we have, everything's going to be there. Okay. That's a step up. Okay. From a general ice cream. Then he levels it up with burgers and chicken. And we just talked about the dinner tonight. So it's becoming more of an experience. The ice cream is now elevated. Okay. Because of the surroundings for everyone in the audience. So let's talk about, oh, wow, I don't even know what direction to go.
Yeah. So, I mean, you brought up the word unique, right?
Yeah.
For folks out there listening, unique doesn't mean never before seen or like completely brand new idea, right? That's not what that means, especially in the food industry, right? What that means is doing something your own way, right? Whatever that is. We make ice cream and burgers. I don't know if you know this or not. I did not invent either of those two things. Okay. So, but we do them in a unique way that resonates with people. I always said that ice cream is memories. People have memories with ice cream, typically good ones, right? Most people that come into an ice cream shop aren't upset, or if they are upset, they're not going to be when they leave, right? Maybe there's a reason. Maybe that's the reason they're coming, is because they had a bad day or something like that. But they're coming for a lift up. They're coming for a pick me up. They're coming to get a scoop of that flavor that makes them feel good, or that they've loved since they were a child, or that was their favorite, or was their dad's favorite. You know what I mean? Or their dad's with them and they're bringing them for Father's Day, like the outcome. There's a multitude of reasons why you'd walk into an ice cream shop. But the reason why you're there ultimately is to make yourself happy with something that's familiar to you, that you know is comforting, right? Same thing with the burgers, right? Everybody listening here has had a cheeseburger before and can probably picture their favorite one in their head. We do a smash burger. Smash burgers are very popular nowadays. We're not the only person in Denver that makes smash burgers, but people like ours for a variety of reasons. We make it the same way every time. Very simple, homemade sauce, homemade pickles. When you're a chef, when you're a restaurateur, when you're making food for people, the most important thing to remember is controlling the variables and controlling the things that you can control, because ultimately that's the difference between an excellent burger and a good burger, right? Or an excellent scoop of ice cream and a good scoop of ice cream, right? So if you're coming from it from the standpoint of, I want to do things in my own way to make people happy and to remind and to, create more good food memories for people, you're going to be successful in that sort of regard, because you're doing it for the right reasons, right? You're not doing it to get to go viral on Instagram. You're not doing it to get, more eyeballs on your product. You're like, oh, I think people would really think this is interesting and cool. Do you like it? Is it interesting and cool to you? Because that's all that really matters.
Ladies and gentlemen, I can retire. I found my replacement right here. I was trying to say exactly that. I did not know how to say it, but that is exactly it. If we're just doing it to get views on Instagram, it definitely ultimately in the long run doesn't put butts in seats, because people don't feel that it's true to you.
If you want views on social media, there is a formula for that. And a lot of people have cracked it, right? You can do gimmicky, stupid things, and you can do that kind of stuff. But ultimately too, I don't know if a lot of people know this, but like food stuff, the stuff that gets the most eyeballs or the most reactions out of people, the most engagement out of people, is the stuff that people instantly recognize when they see a picture of it. Yeah. If they see a picture of it and they're like, I don't know what that food is, it's not going to be nearly as interesting to them. Or at least, for someone like me, it might be, but that's a different type of person who's in the industry, right? For the people that aren't in the industry, that are consumers of the food that are being put out, for the most part, if they see a picture of a burger versus if they see a picture of a skinny Philly sandwich that they've never seen anything like that before, or a shrimp French toast, different things like that, the burger is going to get more reactions 100 times out of 100, just because people resonate with what they see and what's familiar to them. So that's why we do what we do. I started doing the fried fish sandwich on Fridays because I love fried fish sandwiches, and I can't find a really good one in Denver.
Yeah, me too. I agree.
Yeah. Just like a good fried cod with some lettuce, good tartar, and some
Yeah.
pickles, right?
Yeah,
Like,
especially I'm from the East Coast, man. That's something like New England and New York. We love that stuff, spending time there.
I lived in Florida for a couple of years. Grouper sandwiches, black and fried,
Oh,
you know,
yeah.
so like those, they're huge.
Yeah. Now I just felt like I need to move back east.
So nice, but it's just kind of the same thing. It's like, I love this and I cannot find it, so I'm going to do it. Okay. You know, like that's where a lot of the innovation kind of comes from. And like I said, fried fish sandwich with pickles, lettuce, tartar sauce, you know, cheese, whatever, not reinventing the wheel here, just doing something the way that I like to do it. And people respond to that, you know, and they say, thank you for bringing us something that is your own version of something that I already love.
No, it's 100% true. The thing about this that's so important that we've touched upon is that in order for the longevity of your business to go forward, there has to be the heart and the love in it and the ability to be truly who you are. No entrepreneur can disguise themselves, compartmentalize, can run successful businesses in the long run if they're not their true selves. I mean, I think if anyone has ever read the Steve Jobs book, you'll see what happened there when he lost his own company. He had to discover who he truly was, what his purpose truly was, and then come back and do it. And so that's a lot of it. So the hardship, the ups and downs, the willingness to sell ice cream in the parking lot, the things that we go through that in those moments that seem to just endure on for months. I know I hear a lot of you guys, you're door dashing, you're working 2 jobs just to support the entrepreneurial dream right now because how expensive everything is. Well, don't stop. If you can keep it, you can balance it, you're not dying, your health's not killing you, and you can find balance. I recommend a little bit of walking or exercise or push-ups or sit-ups anytime you can get during those things. Just active squats, air squats, anything during those times. But you can't, the difference between an entrepreneur that's successful and one who never was is generally the ability to endure. It's not the idea itself. Okay, everyone thinks it's a brilliant idea and you get discovered and it's flames. No, it's literally the idea to endure and convince people it's a good idea.
And I'll add to that, you know, because like I said, there's been dozens of times where I've thought about giving up, you know,
Yeah.
or said, why is this what I'm continuing to do when I know that I could, you know, be more comfortable doing something else, you know, or have a little bit more of a safety net, however you want to put it. You know, the ability to endure, but it's also that ability to re-inspire yourself, you know, and to find joy in the pain, you know, and to find, you know, and to always look past that current moment and remind yourself, like, why do I do this? You know, why am I doing this? You know, and if you can recapture that for yourself and kind of reignite that in your own brain every once in a while, because it's going to happen multiple times while you're doing this, unless it's just a insane success from the jump. But, you know, those are few and far between, I feel like, for most folks. You have to be like, no, especially in the beginning, when you don't have people you're working with, when you don't have people to rely on and everything like that. Who's going to be that person that pushes you past that really bad day? Well, it's you, it's yourself. You know, you're the only person that can do that for you. So you have to be able to learn how to, like you said, like manage your own brain almost, you know, and get through those moments and those thought processes that you're having of like, why am I doing this? There's no way that I should be doing this. And I should probably give up. Oftentimes you can go a few more days or a few more weeks and that feeling will fade. You know, you just gotta, you have to get to that.
It's so true.
For me, that's something that happens along the way that was, you know, that was really great for me, but you can't really control this, is like getting those little successes around the way that kind of give you that taste of what could be on the other side, right? You know, just those dopamine hits, right? You know, of people that are, you know, you have like a really successful week on Instagram and growing your business in terms of followers and stuff like that. Might not directly equate to money in your pocket right at that moment, but in the long term, it helps out quite a bit, you know? Like another another local publication reached out to you and wanted to do an article. Maybe it doesn't do the same thing for your business that the one that broke your business does, but it keeps you interested in it. And you get to have conversations like these where you can kind of like, oh yeah, I forgot that that's kind of how I feel about this, or I forgot that that's something that I've said before, and it's like, you need to be able to, it comes from within in this business. When, it can be a lonely, loveless task at times, but you ultimately have to remind yourself why you're doing it. And if the why you're doing it isn't resonating with you, it's not going to resonate with anybody else. That's just how it's going. So
let's do a reflection question. Growth over the last 5 years, old David versus entrepreneur David, because there's a very strong, confident human, not in an egotistical way, but someone who's developed into more by the necessities of trying to grow a business and now having people rely on you, right? You created jobs. So
yeah, exactly.
Let's talk about this a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, I've got a couple of people now that, make really good money working for me. I've got a couple, like, I could have never imagined having people work full time for me the last couple of years, just like with running payroll and learning how all that works and everything. I was like, there's no way we could afford to have multiple people working for us full time if I'm having to pay myself as well. And now it's completely flipped on its head because of being able to get those right people in place. Those people that you pay, there's a reason why you pay them. And it's to give you the flexibility so that you can do the things that you need to do, from working in the business to working on the business. Right. So, a lot of us I'm still working in the business every day. I'm getting supplies, I'm cooking, I'm doing all that different stuff. But ultimately my job nowadays is to give people the tools and the resources they need to execute the plan that we've put in front of them so that I can do the other things on the back end to find a bigger location for us when our lease runs up in the next 18 months, to maybe figure out if this is going to be a wholesale ice cream product or if we're going to keep it a retail product. Are we going to separate the burger concept from the ice cream concept and have them under two different names and kind of have a restaurant group going? Like, these are the different questions that I get to talk about with myself now, as opposed to, I wonder if I can pay myself my paycheck this week, So like being able to go from deprivating questions like that make you think about this in, frankly, just a shitty way, to being able to ask those ethereal questions and those future-proof kind of questions, those 1 year, 2 year, 5 year, 10-year out kind of questions, is now it's exciting again. Now it's growing a business. Now we're talking about growth as opposed to treading water or plateaus or different stuff in revenue, right? So I really attribute our success, Right Cream's success. I did a lot of work over the first couple of years, but for the last year plus, I attribute a lot of that success to the people that I've been able to find that are doing their job well and really believe in what we have going on and can see the bigger picture. So once you have those people on your side, it's a tremendous opportunity for you as a business owner to be able to look at things from a wider perspective and to kind of take everything in and empower the people that will empower you to do the things that you want to do in life and be able to grow.
There's an important lesson here for the audience. And I try to anchor this as much as possible, even as entrepreneurs. Exposure, experience, and education are the foundation of leadership. And if you don't have those three things and you aren't developing as a leader, it's very hard to be an entrepreneur. You lack a very necessary skill. And I don't mean leadership as leading from the front. I mean, through those three things, you gain an understanding of humanity and you continue to pursue it. If you look at some of my posts or go to Gorilla Brave, you'll see there's the pillars of leadership. Those are the three foundational ones. But the reason is exactly what we're talking about here. Without the willingness of the Food Network, of the individuals who put out shows like Anthony Bourdain to not only make money or profit, but actually the reality is they were trying to share something with the world and educate the world. That's a lot of that in the Food Network. I wouldn't say that everything is about educating an audience on shows like that or those type of TV shows, but I will say that there is an important group of individuals that have educated the world that can't travel to those places and experience the food, different than just a travel channel or a movie that shows us those places. That experience, that exposure, that ability to see different food, to see different cultures, to experience it in that way, and then gain an appetite for it and hopefully go see it some of the places. It's very important. It's very important as an entrepreneur also, because what we just talked about is in 5 years, we talked about how many pivots and additions David has had. Right, David? I mean, you've pivoted, you've added burgers, you're doing your fish sandwich. So that's just from ice cream, guys, from beginning at ice cream. So in order to do that, we ourselves as the leader need to be anchored in educating ourselves continuously, experiencing the world around us, like really experiencing it in food, understanding what others are doing, and then living it, like we just talked about, putting it into our businesses, experimenting with specials, doing things, trying things, adding value to the products we already offer. If you're already in donuts and you think you're doing well in donuts, but there's Dunkin' Donuts that's doing it the same way, you're not doing well in donuts, because ultimately the day will come you will not do well. I'm sorry, but these are important things to think about, because in order to survive in today's world where everything moves so fast, we need to do that. The last part I said is the exposure. That's going to experience the food itself, or the cultures themselves, or the humans themselves, animals, whatever. And that makes a big difference, because when we do that, we gain a love for it, because we've gained exposure to it. We've seen it. And in that, we can share it in the love of our food. That exposure piece gives us an understanding of humanity in a greater way outside of our communities. So I think that that's what we're talking about a lot here. Do you want to comment on that at all, David, before I ask the next question?
Sure thing. I mean, like you can't know if you don't go, right? So you got to go try things, whether that means you're jumping on a plane and traveling halfway across the world, or you're going to a new restaurant that you've never been to in your city, or, anything as simple as that, right? You got to go and try things. You got to go and see things. You got to know what these things are to be able to share them with other people, and do them in your own way, right? Like I was just in New York and then London and then Munich, and like a month ago for a variety of different things, personal and business and all that kind of stuff. But I ate probably 12 different burgers that entire time in 3 different cities, right? Just because I need to know. And I tried.
You and I are going to be friends.
Yeah. And I ate like 8 different types of ice cream, or 8 different ice cream shops while in those 3 different cities over the course of 9, 10, 12 days or whatever it was, right? So you gotta try things. You gotta know. You have to go. You have to just go and see for yourself, because that'll translate into you being able to share something new in your own way for your customers and for the other people that want to experience what you're experiencing. So I think that's a good point.
Yeah, no, I agree. Let's talk about the future. You talked about rattling it around in your head a little bit, thinking about where this goes. Is continual right creams, or is it to do multiple different types of restaurants? I mean, maybe it's both. I don't know. There's been lots of restaurant groups that have found that success. So just out of curiosity, you're moving along now. You have a good support staff. So now that you can work on the business, where does that starting to go for you?
Yeah, exactly. And like, this is I don't have a perfect answer for that at the moment, because that we're kind of in that, like, I'm trying to figure that out for myself. I'm asking all those questions myself on a daily basis, right? Is it separating out the 2 concepts? Is it, just getting a bigger location? Is it making the ice cream more wholesale and doing the burgers as retail? Is it a combination of both? And I don't have the perfect answer for that right now. But what I do know is that when I stumble across the right location or the right situation, I'm going to know it now, because I've lived this thing for 5 years. I've been through all the ups and downs. I've made plenty of mistakes, that cost us plenty of money on thinking that we were going to move into this new location, or, thinking that we were going to be in this new project and all that kind of stuff. And it just doesn't work out. So I think I have a pretty good sense of what would make sense for the business, but I'm not going to sit here and say that like we need this, and this, and then things are going to be perfect for us, because I know that that's not how this works in this world, right? We're going to move into a bigger location. We're going to have 3 or 4 times as much space as we currently have. And just because we're having 3 or 4 times as much space doesn't mean it's just going to be 3 or 4 times or 10 times as big. We're going to have probably 10 times as many problems and new things that come up that we're going to have to learn how to navigate, that I'm going to have to learn how to deal with, that my staff's going to have to relearn how to do their jobs and stuff like that. I know that a lot of that growth means change, but change doesn't necessarily mean different. It just means that you're doing things in a different way, right? So doing things in a different way can yield the same results if you're diligent about the way that you're doing them, right? And you're keeping that end goal in mind of, we still want to serve a delicious smash burger. We still want to serve the best ice cream that you've ever had, right? So if you're keeping those visions in mind, then I think that you're not going to be able to make nearly as many mistakes as you would if you're just like, we need to grow, we need more space, we need it now. I mean, I'm diligently looking at as many opportunities as I can across the city. Ultimately what I think would make the most sense for us is, I would love to be able to have the concepts in the same building, but realistically, I don't know if that makes a whole lot of sense. So in the same parking lot makes a lot of sense. You know what I mean? In the same neighborhood makes a lot of sense. You have the ice cream shop and production in one place, and then you have the burger restaurant, maybe some milkshakes and a couple of ice cream like sandwiches or different things like that you can get at the burger restaurant. That's kind of the vision for Right Cream right now, or what becomes maybe Right Restaurant Group or whatever it ends up being in the long term. Because I don't necessarily know where it's headed, but I know what we need. And I know we need more space. And I know we need to be able to serve hot food 7 days a week. And I know that we need to be able to do these things because people have told me, and I can see the response. People don't even necessarily have to tell you with their words. They can show you with their actions, right? Now, I talked about it earlier, having people show up multiple times a week. Well, I have people that show up 3 or 4 times a week. Not even kidding, to the same ice cream shop, right? Because we're doing burgers, we're doing breakfast, we're doing the fish sandwich. They show up Wednesday, they show up Thursday, they show up Friday, they show up Saturday, and they take the day off on Sunday, Those are the types of people that really show you what you're doing is right. And if you can kind of harness what they like about that and just kind of hold on to that, then the growth is going to come, and you're going to grow in the right way if you're keeping that sort of stuff in mind. So, I mean, I could see Right Cream being, a few ice cream shops around the city, and that's the most that it would ever be. Or I could see Right Cream being sold on grocery store shelves. It just kind of depends on the direction that we take that thing. They're 2 different kind of avenues of ice cream, right? Doing industrial co-packing and doing, it's kind of small batch in-house packing and everything like that. Burgers are a little bit more easy for me to visualize, just because that's a very repeatable concept and you can get that done over and over and over again. Obviously it's been done many times before. So for me, I see tremendous growth on the hot food side of stuff in the next coming years. And, if we keep Right Cream as a single ice cream shop and kind of that nostalgia and like, hey, this is where it all started kind of deal, I'd be okay with that too. If it becomes, a multi-location and, wholesale type of model or different things like that, I'm also okay with that too. But that's kind of like the solace that I have now, in that I'm comfortable with whichever direction the business goes, because I've been tremendously satisfied with how it's been going for the last year or two. And I can see that now that we've finally gotten over that initial hump of, those couple of years of being in business and learning how to navigate all that crap and, paying rent and paying payroll and having city sales taxes to pay and all that other stuff. It's like, once you learn how to navigate those processes, everything else kind of becomes second nature.
Yeah, I think that one of the things that we just talked about was, I'm going to anchor something. I think Warren Buffett owns Berkshire Hathaway and a lot of investors, but Berkshire Hathaway owns Dairy Queen for a reason. And it's not because they serve ice cream or the Blizzards. It's because they serve burgers, and because burgers are recession proof, and ice cream is a great add-on when people have money. Same with Freddy's frozen custard and steak burgers. Those two models are really good models that have combined two things. I think you could do a better job. Dairy Queen's kind of a franchised version of your model. I'll call it a easily standardized, reprintable that uses other people's ingredients. But I think the world needs something like you're offering, maybe in a more slimmed form, but in a combination. Those companies don't really have any real combination. And other than Chick-fil-A, I think those two companies have very, very loyal customers comparatively. So, it's just something to compare your model against, because I think your model is amazing. I think it's brilliant. And I think it adds in everything that's necessary to build a well-run multiple unit restaurant. A quick service, we'll call it. But I think you have that. You have all the skills, and then whatever else you want to do, you're going to get to do, almost like what Panda Inn did and Panda Express. He had the Panda Express model, even though the Panda Inns are 3 normal restaurants. So I think there's a lot of options. I just absolutely, impressed. I think keeping true to yourself has taken you a long way, David, I think, and built a business. And, I've amazed at where you're going. I do see the ice cream in multiple places. I'm going to make sure that I come try one of these smash burgers and ice creams. You've convinced me for my next date night that that's where I'm going. And the whole thing is you and what you're doing. So, no matter what anyone says, I will say this: your business, you more than anyone. So as long as you stay true to that, and same with the audience, as long as you stay true to you and that point that I said where you're passionate enough and it's true enough to you where you can endure the rest of your life possibility doing this, because you're creating something that could possibly last the rest of your life, then you're okay,
Yeah. And when I started this 5 years ago, I really just wanted to make a couple extra $100 a week so I might be able to go on vacation every once in a while.
There you go.
And I never would have imagined that, that we'd be doing course dinners at our ice cream shop like we did last night, So there's a lot in between there. But ultimately, like you said, it really just comes from knowing who you are and knowing what you would like to do and staying, like you said, staying true to yourself and just not trying to get caught up in what you think people are going to respond well to, like ultimately it's about where you respond well to it, then your customers are going to respond well to it. If you really love it and you're really into it and you're really passionate about it and you mean what you say when you're saying that kind of stuff, that's all that matters. And people will resonate with that and it'll hit home with them. So keep doing what you're doing.
I agree. Where can they find you online? Where can they find Right Cream here in Denver?
Yeah. Best place to find us online is Instagram. The website, we have a website too, rightcream.com. A little bit less up-to-date information on the website just because I'm not updating it on a daily basis, right? More about, a couple months or different things like that. The Instagram is where we post all of our daily specials and all that kind of stuff. And if you don't have an Instagram, the best way to find us is through our website or just by searching us on Google. All of that information is also there. There's a lot of information about us out there just on the internet from other publications and other interviews and other write-ups and different stuff like that. So you can see all that information if you don't have social media. But we're on Instagram. That's the best way to find us. It's just at Right Cream, RIGHTCREAM. Look for the purple ice cream cone and you're in the right spot.
I love it.
Yeah. So I'm the one that runs the account too. So if anybody has any questions or wants to reach out, they send a DM there. So I'll be the one that see it. So
no, I appreciate you coming on. I'm going to let you finish off the show with this question. Growing the humans around you, you've talked about now you have individual employees that are making a living basically. Let's talk about going from sales to then now training and growing and being responsible. I don't want to totally say it that way because humans are responsible for our own livelihood, but we are creating jobs that humans depend on. So talk to me about growing others, because that's something that you're doing right now pretty rapidly.
Yeah. So I think showing someone that you believe in them and that, you're going to roll with their learning process and everything like that can mean the world to them, and can mean the world for your business and everything like that. So, finding people that you like to work with and that can see your vision and that see your side of the stuff. And that I think that's the thing that I've been lucky and super lucky with is the people that I trust the most are frankly the people that have reached out to me about wanting to come work with me, and wanting to come work with Rye Cream and doing what we're doing because they saw what we're doing and they're like, that resonated with them. And it's really easy for people to say, I love burgers and that looks like an awesome burger, or I love ice cream and that looks like awesome ice cream. But once they get into the thick of it and actually starting to do it, and learning what it really takes to make all that happen, you gotta kind of you gotta be a mentor, you gotta be also just a resource for them. And, you gotta be willing to share knowledge. And I'm not necessarily the best teacher, just in terms of like, my mom always used to ask me to help my sister with math and stuff, but I'm not very patient with that kind of stuff. So, but what I think I am good at is trusting people. Now I've gotten so much better just saying, I trust you and I believe in you and I know that you can do it. So I'm going to let you do it. And I think that that's for business owners and for entrepreneurs and for people that are just starting their stuff, that's definitely a hurdle that you have to cross. Like I talked about earlier, like in the beginning, there's nobody that can do it better than you. At a certain point, there's nothing better you can do than letting somebody else do it. So that's what I would kind of leave this off with is just knowing where you're at in your business. And if it's time to start delegating and time to start sharing that process with people and all that stuff, do that. Don't be afraid to trust someone, because if you can't trust anybody, then you really can't trust yourself and it's not going to work out well for you. So that's what you need.
Yeah, thank you, David, very much for your time. I'm definitely inviting you back on the show whenever you're ready to tell more or you're growing, because I'm definitely interested to see where this goes. And, part of the story, or one of the things that I'm well educated and very done well in business and on purpose. And one of the things that I will say that I think that we do wrong in humanity, especially in business or in entrepreneurship, is we don't realize it's a continual story. We take snapshots of individual story and we hold on to them, but in reality, we need to continue to tell them and follow the journey in some ways and learn as the person's willing to share the story, I think. And so I'd love to continue to do that with you, just because I think your concept is disruptive in a way, in a good way. And there's some market, an industry that's already been created within the ice cream, hot food mix, or what I'll call frozen food, hot food mix. And I think that there's someone needs to come along and shake things up. I think you're the right person. So, I hope everyone keeps listening, and I want to continue to tell your story, and I just want to plant that seed as well.
No, happy to continue to do that over time as as more gets, I
appreciate it.
Very thankful for you having me on, Justin, and happy to join you anytime in the future. And if anybody has any questions for me, like I said, they can just reach out to me on Instagram.
Yeah, awesome. Everyone in the audience, you can find us on Spotify, iTunes, or anywhere else you grow yourself through podcasts. I love you guys. If you like the episodes, the best thing you can do is like, comment, share on them in the episode, share them with any individuals that might benefit from them. That helps the story of the individuals who come on there be heard. Also, entrepreneurs be helped. So both are true. The reason we do it, the reason everyone comes on here, one, it's worth sharing our stories. We've been through something, and our test and our testimony, those who witness it can grow from it. Okay, it's that simple, guys. It's thousands of years of humanity and understanding of education, and it doesn't always have to be done formally. In fact, it's definitely very often done tribally, which I will call within our communities or within our industry. And in this case, through TV also, as we discussed. For me too, Food Network, Food TV, Top Chef, even as an entrepreneur in the game, still to this day. Oh, love that. Should love those shows. Dives, diners, and drive-throughs. He went around the world and he gave exposure to all these individuals and exposed food and ideas and recipes. And, that's, what Guy Fieri did there, or is still doing, I guess, is pretty incredible. So, anything we can do, we can support food if we're eating it, I think we should. So lastly, guys, find Right Cream on Instagram, share, like it, see what they're doing. If you're in Denver, try the food. I kind of am a burger person myself. Everyone knows I really love hamburgers and cheeseburgers. And so, I do find a lot of those type of concepts for my show just by the nature of me being attracted to that type of food. So thank you guys. I love you guys. We're out.